Hey, what is going on everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and we're back over at our friend here, the PS4, much sooner than I anticipated because there's been a new jailbreak that was recently released. This comes in the form of Poopsploit, which, look, I'm just gonna be honest, I'm not making a joke or anything, that is actually what it is called. I suppose it's from the flow, and this is really called the sysnetcontrol exploit, but he called it Poopsploit, and it works up to firmware 12.52 thanks to the flow for releasing it, and thanks to a familiar face here, 15432, who ended up implementing this into BDJB. And you know what, while I'm here, this might be the only time I can make this reference in a tutorial, so I'm just gonna do it.
Look, we're adults in here, you can say it.
Poop?
You said poop! I said! I said poop in here! Poop!
So now with that out of the way, and since anybody with a sensitive stomach is no longer watching this video, I guess we can continue on with what we're doing here. Like I said, this is a jailbreak that works for the PS4 all the way from firmware 9.00 and up to firmware 12.52. So as long as your system is within that range, you should be okay. If you have a system on a lower firmware, it can be updated to 9.00, and typically lower firmware is better. And if you have a firmware higher than 12.52, you're just going to have to wait for a new jailbreak. Just keep it offline, don't update it. If you're wanting to jailbreak your system, you just have to wait for a newer jailbreak. However, this implementation using BDJB means that you'll be able to jailbreak your working PS4 as long as it's on a compatible firmware using only a burned Blu-ray disc, and that is all there is to it. It works on all models of the PS4 as well, so that means if you have a regular PS4, a PS4 Slim, or even a PS4 Pro, it will work as long as you have a working Blu-ray drive and you have a compatible firmware installed on it. And just to get this out of the way as well, a lot of people have asked me in the past how they can downgrade to a compatible firmware. Well, the answer is you can't, at least not easily. You see, typical downgrading is not really possible on the PS4, but you can revert the firmware possibly to a lower version. Now, Console Mods does cover pretty much everything on it in their firmware revert section right here, but this is going to be a lot of effort that a lot of people are not going to want to go through. It is a bit of a risky procedure, and it also does involve opening up the system, soldering, and doing a few sensitive operations to the system to hopefully get it onto a lower firmware. What I'm saying is, if you have that capability and know-how, you can give it a shot. It's not going to be covered in this video, but if you're like most people and you don't want to do anything like this here, you're just going to have to take your high firmware PS4, take it offline, don't update it, and wait for a newer jailbreak. I've also been asked a lot of times about getting online PSN access, online play on here, and in short, no, you cannot do that. In order to get onto PSN, your system must be on the latest firmware, and since these jailbreaks are purposefully released for outdated firmwares, you will not be able to get onto PSN. So it's either have a offline system that's jailbroken, or have a fully online and up-to-date system without a jailbreak. You're going to make the decision on that, but what I'm saying is if you have an up-to-date system, you won't be able to follow along with this video. With those disclaimers out of the way, let's go ahead and get to the prerequisites. So for this, you are going to need your PS4. It needs to be up and running and operational, and it does need to have a working Blu-ray drive. However, like I've said, it must be within a compatible firmware range. In order to check your system's firmware, you can go up here, you need to go over to Settings, go all the way down to System, and then go into system information. Once you're in here, look for your system software version. And like I said before, the firmware must be anywhere from minimum firmware 9.00 and up to firmware 12.52. If you're on a higher firmware, you will not be able to utilize this. And if you're within the range like I am right here, I'm on firmware 9.00, it would be most advised to stay on that lower firmware. Generally, when it comes to PS4s, the lower firmware you're on, the more access you're going to have available. And what I mean by that is on this lower firmware, I do have multiple options to jailbreak, such as using WebKit or even using a network exploit. However, if you're on too high of a firmware, you won't be able to use those older exploits. So it's just nice to have those additional options on hand. But if you're on a firmware lower than 9.00, you might want to weigh your options there, and if you choose to update your system, I would say update to 9.00 and don't go any higher. So if you've got your PS4 on a GoldHEN firmware on hand and it is working, there's two other things you need. You're going to need a burned Blu-ray disc, which was going to have this exploit using BDJB, and you're also going to need a USB USB drive in order to transfer some files to the PS4. For required hardware, we don't really need to go into details about the USB drive because you just need one that is working and has enough storage for your own needs on here. But what about the discs themselves? If you're going to be doing this yourself, you are going to need to pick up a Blu-ray burner if you do not have one already. You can pick them up really anywhere you can purchase one, and if you want to choose an internal or an external one, that is going to be up to you. However, the thing that I'm going to caution here is if you're going to be buying a Blu-ray burner online, make sure that you really read the listings here. Some of these drives, for example, might not even be Blu-ray compatible. If I'm looking it up, this one here is just a DVD writer, so that would not work for what we're needing. A lot of these here are Blu-ray writers, which means that you'll be able to burn a Blu-ray disc, which is exactly what we need. However, some of these here might just be Blu-ray readers, meaning that you can read Blu-ray discs, but you cannot write a Blu-ray disc. So that is not what we need. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to be purchasing a Blu-ray burner, make sure it is actually a burner and not just a reader. And for our Blu-ray discs, you are going to need a blank Blu-ray disc. You cannot use a CD, you cannot use a DVD, you cannot use a game, you cannot use a movie. It needs to be a blank Blu-ray disc. It must be either a BDR or a BDRE. Now the difference between the two is that if you're using a BDR disc, you can see that these ones are more plentiful and cheaper. That allows you to write to the disk one time, which is fine for most people. However, if you're wanting to rewrite, like let's say there's new updates that come out to BDJB, which can and do happen, you might want to get a rewritable disk right here. These are the exact ones that I personally use, and they've been pretty good, but it's just going to be up to you. You can choose to use either a rewritable or a single writable disk, as long as you can burn an image file to it and you can use it on your PS4. That is the most important thing here. Now, as long as you're meeting those prerequisites and you have the required hardware needed to continue on, we can go ahead and start working on the downloads. For that, navigate over to your PC. You're going to need to download a few things, and we're going to be burning a disk. So the first thing we're going to need is our BDJB ISO that we can burn over. Now, there's many people who are messing around with images and they're doing little customizations and tweaking the exploit and such, and the one that I'm going to be linking here is actually forked from the original one. I did show the original one on screen prior, but this one is going to be a GitHub repository from developer Bush again, and this here is the GoldHEN Autoloader AIO. I'm going to be showing this one here, and I'm going to link it down below in the video just because I think this is a pretty cool image that has a lot more stuff that could be useful to folks. If you want to download this here, you just need to go to this link linked down below in the description of the video, go over to the releases section, and then download the latest build of the GoldHEN Autoloader. This one at the time of recording is the 1.5 release, which is in pre-release, but it still works for what we need it to do. What you can do is go over to Assets, open this up, and then download the ISO right here and save it somewhere you can easily find it. If there is a newer ISO of this, that's great. Just download the newer one and follow along. And if you have a different BDJB image that you prefer, that is totally fine. Just go ahead, get your ISO and follow along. The next download I'm going to recommend here, if you've never messed with a jailbroken PS4, is going to be the Homebrew store. It'll be linked down below in the description of this video. You can go ahead and give this a quick read here, but if you want to download this, go ahead, go to the releases section, and under the releases section, go to the latest release, and we're going to look for the store R2 package file. This one might change, like just in case the number changes, that's fine, but you might need to just look at the file names. We don't want the legacy version, we don't want the PS5 version, we just want the PS4 version, which is store R2. Go ahead and download and save this somewhere you can easily find it. Finally, if you're looking for something to burn your Blu-ray disc, I'm going to be using ImageBurn for this. ImageBurn is for Windows, so if you have something like Mac OS or Linux, you're going to have to use an equivalent image burning software, and even if you're on Windows and you're not a fan of ImageBurn, you can use something else as long as you're able to burn an ISO file to a Blu-ray disc. But if you're going to use ImageBurn, just go ahead, download this, save the exe, and then install it like any normal application. And with everything downloaded, we pretty much have everything we need. Now on my desktop here, I have ImageBurn installed, I have the ISO that we're going to burn, and the Homebrew store. You're also seeing a couple other packages here because these are just going to be games that I'm going to show you how you can install. One of them is a PS4 game, which is Wild Guns Remastered, and the other one is a PS1 game, which is Silent Hill, converted from PS1 over to PS4. So let's go ahead and start with the hardest part here. Once you have ImageBurn installed, go ahead and open it up. Make sure you have your disk drive connected and go ahead and pop in a Blu-ray disc. Make sure it is a blank one. Once you have that set up, click on Write Image File to Disk. Now it's going to look a little something like this. You could see I have my Blu-ray burner set up right here, and you can see that I do have a disk in the drive since it's showing me all the information right here. In order to burn our ISO, just find the GoldHEN Auto Loader Deluxe ISO or whichever one you're going to be using, and you can drag and drop it onto image burn. If that doesn't work, you can click on this button right here and you can browse for it and then load it up in here. But this is about how it looks. Now, in order to burn this, you're going to want to look at the supported write speeds, and I would recommend burning at the slowest speed available. Since this one here supports 2x burning speed, you're going to want to set your write speed to that. Otherwise, if you can't find this or you're just not bothered to look for it, you can go to write speed, set it to 1x, and it's going to default to the slowest write speed. I'll just go ahead and change that back. Now, once you've loaded up your ISO, you've set your write speed, and you're good to go, you just need to hit this button right here. Now, if you have a BDR disk, it should start burning, but if you're like me and you have a BDRE disk, check this out. If you've never used a BDRE disk before, this is the first time, it's going to tell you this disk needs to be formatted before you can write to it. Would you like to format it now? And you're going to click yes. The first time you ever use a BDRE disk, it has to write zeros to the entire disk, meaning that that first burn could take upwards of an hour. You just need to wait for it to finish, and after that, it will be done. However, I'm going to say no to this because I'm going to put in another disk. Now, for our last option here, this is a BDRE disk that I've already burned to. It actually has an older jailbreak on here, so I just want to update it. But if you're going to be rewriting one of these disks here, just go ahead, load up the disk, load up the ISO, set your write speed, and then click on this button to write. It is going to give you this warning here saying the disk is not empty and all the data will be overwritten. As long as you're okay with this, go ahead, click on yes. Now, once it starts burning, it's going to look a little something like this. And really, all you have to do is wait. You know, the beauty of this as well, too, is that I did say you have to wait, but you don't even have to wait that long. Look at this. We are at 50 seconds. It just finished. It's going to do the finalization here, and it should be good. There we go, we're done. So within a minute, we had our disk all ready to go. And congratulations, you can hit OK, close out of here. That is technically the jailbreak disk that we need, and that right there was the hardest part of the jailbreak. I'm not kidding when I say that. Congratulations, you just got over the hardest part. The rest of this should be smoother sailing from here. So go ahead, keep your disk to the side, and then close out of image burn. We're not going to need that again for now. Now that our BDJB disk done, we need to work on the USB drive. The first thing we need to check is make sure that the format of the drive is fine. We can right click this, check the properties, and it needs to be either exFAT or FAT32 in file system. Now keep in mind here, if you are needing to format the drive and change the file system, I suggest using exFAT if you're on the PS4 primarily, just so you can transfer over files which are larger than 4 GB using your drive. If you need to change the file system on here, go ahead, back up any data you might care about, and from there, right click, format, pick your file system. I'm going to go with exFAT, quick format is fine. We're going to hit start, OK, and that's it. This USB drive is ready to go. Now in the USB drive, you just navigate into it, and inside the USB drive, this is where you copy your package files. Go ahead, grab any package files you want to copy over, and drag them over. Or you can just copy paste, whatever works. Unfortunately, this drive is a little bit slower, but you can see we have our Homebrew store already copied over. It's going to copy over Silent Hill, and after that, it should copy over Wild Guns Remastered, and we should have a nice collection of package files to at least start off with. Oh, and while we're waiting, it might be a good time to say that I have covered PS1 to PS4 conversions on this channel before, so if you're looking to play some of your old PS1 games on your PS4, you might want to give that a watch. Now with that all completed, you can see we've copied all the packages over, so as long as these are the ones you want to install, you can come back out here, right click, eject your USB drive, and that is it. We've done all the prep needed for our disk and our USB drive. Let's take them over to the PS4. Back over at the PS4, you can go ahead and plug in your USB drive, but don't load up your jailbreak disk just yet. We do need to do a few things to prepare. The first thing we should do is go up here to Settings. Within Settings, go all the way down to System, and then go to Automatic Downloads, and make sure all of these have been disabled, just because we don't need those automatic downloads happening, and we especially don't need system software updates downloading. This right here, if you let your system automatically download an update and apply it, that is the easiest way to lose your jailbreak, which we do not want to do. So once these have been disabled, exit out of here. Now go down to Enable HDCP, and you need to make sure this is enabled. Just make sure that box has been checked. This is required in order to use BDJB. The next thing for BDJB is we need to go back, go all the way to Notifications, and make sure this setting right here, disable pop-ups while playing video, has been disabled, because we are going to need that as well. We can also get our PS4 online as well, so you can exit out of here, go over to network, and if you have not set up your internet connection, just go ahead and go through this process. You can go in here, set it using either Wi-Fi or using a LAN cable, and just go through that process. You could see right here, if I check my internet connection, it is working on here, even though it says PSN sign-in failed. That is fine, but I do have this all connected, so we should be good at that point. With everything set up there, we can come back out to the main screen, and let's go ahead and load up our jailbreak disk. When you pop in the disk, if you look in the top right corner of the screen, you're going to see a disk icon just showing that it is loading up, and we just need to wait a few seconds. If this has all been done successfully, then check this out. There we go, we do have the HEN Loader LP right there, so congratulations, you were able to burn this successfully. Now all we need to do is launch this. Now I'm going to say this, I have run the jailbreak on this system before, but if you've never done this before, you might get a few pop-ups right here. One of them might look like this. If it looks like this, that means your system is not connected online, and you need to be connected online at least one time in order to play that Blu-ray disc. So if you're getting that error, get connected online, pop in your BDJB disc, and just let it activate the Blu-ray playback. It is not a system update, it is not a firmware update, but it is just a license essentially needed to use Blu-ray movies and such on your PS4, which is what we need BDJB to do. The second message might be this one right here, or if it's asking you to connect to the internet for live features, you can just say yes. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and launch this and get our system jailbroken. Now once this launches, it's going to look a little something like this, and you can see it's a nice fancy image, which is why I like this here, and it gives us a lot of options over on the left. Now just doing a basic thing here, the main ones you're going to want to care about are either laps or poops. Now if you're confused on which one to use here, really if you're on firmware 12.02 or lower, you can use laps, and if you're on a higher firmware such as 12.5 or 12.52, you can use poops. Now, some people might be wondering which one is better. Both of them seem to be good. There seems to be some people who say that laps is the more stable one, which is pretty stable. There's also some people who have better luck with poops. So therefore, it's really going to be up to you. If you're on a high enough firmware like 12.52, you have to use poops, but if you're on a lower firmware, you can use whichever one works better for you. Just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and start with poops. So select your option and then tap the X button to continue. It might take a little bit of time, but if it gives you a message like this telling you to reboot your PS4, you just need to do exactly what it's telling you. So hold down the PlayStation button on your controller, go to power, and then do a full restart of your PS4. Now when your PS4 restarts, no worries, just go ahead and load up your disc yet again. And just like before, select your option and then tap the X button. Now you can see right here, that one was actually super quick. Wow, that was like less than a second it was able to load in. But you can see it'll be successful when it tells you that GoldHEN has loaded in. And if all that is done, we can then exit out of here. Just go ahead and press the PlayStation button on your controller. And once you're back here, go ahead, press the options button and hit close application. Give it a few moments and congratulations, your system is jailbroken. Yeah, just like that, it's jailbroken. Now keep in mind this is a tethered exploit. So that means whenever you go into rest mode, for example, when it comes back out of rest mode, your jailbreak will still be there, but if you restart or you turn off your PS4, you are going to lose your jailbreak. And in order to load it back up, you do have to go back into the disk and reload the jailbreak on boot up. But you'll also be able to tell it is working because if you come up here and go over to the GoldHEN option, well, this is a new option right here. So check this out. Go ahead, go into GoldHEN, and we can look at our settings right here. I'll just go ahead and run you through them. The first thing is going to be debug settings. It's got some information over the package installer, and you can certainly change whichever options you're wanting here, but for enable debug settings, I would personally go in here, and I like having the full menu enabled. You can also enable game debug settings if you want to. It's really up to you, since this is your system here. Within the cheat settings here, I would recommend having the cheat menu available. It is by default set to use the long press of a share button in order to bring that up, and you can also auto-apply these on a game starting up if you want to. I personally don't do that just because I like to kind of control my cheats there. You could also go into the show title ID, which is really helpful because you can show the title ID and even the application version or both on your games here. So I'm personally going to do both of them. Just keep in mind, if you have a ton of games on here, it could have some performance issues and even slow down your menus. So you might just want to keep that in mind. As for the cheat archive, you can download a slew of cheats from here, but we're not going to do that just yet. I'm going to show you how to do that later. Within the plugin settings here, I would recommend enabling the plugins loader, and you can also update the plugin archive, but I'm going to show you another way of doing that. We can exit out of here, go back over to the game overlay, and here you can play around with some pretty cool settings. One of them is the FPS counter. If you want to enable that, you can also show some system information, like all this information right here. I'm personally not going to do that. You can also enable scale lines as well too, which is pretty cool. In the server settings, I personally like to have a FTP server up and running. You could also have the bin loader server as well too. This is just if you want to send additional payloads to your system. I'm personally going to disable that here because I don't use that as often, but I do like having the FTP server available. For Klog settings, I'm personally not a developer or a debugger like that, so I don't really need the kernel logs available. And then within your settings here, you should enable rest mode support, so that means that you will be able to utilize rest mode and still maintain your jailbreak. And another thing you can do here is enable BD app autokill. If you do that, that just means whenever you jailbreak the system using that disk, once it is successful, it will automatically close out of it. And for the date and time, you can even come in here. I do need to do this here. I'm going to update date and time. There we go. And you can even auto update it as well too if you want. I'll go ahead and enable that, why not? And finally, in the About section here, there's some really cool stuff you can check out. You can check out, the features and really credits and such for GoldHEN itself, the cheat menu here, just some information about me. You could see what's going on with this. So if we check out, I believe it's Sistro's page. So that's where it takes us to if you want to see some of the other stuff Sistro has done. And if we exit out of here, we can even go back to the About section. I'm not going to fully spoil this here, but if you check out the Cracktro, it's some pretty cool stuff. I don't want to really spoil it and show everything here, but that's something that you can check out and have some fun with. Either way, those are some of the settings that you can check out there, and you're more than welcome to change really whatever you want to in there, as long as you understand how it works and really just customize your settings and your system to your liking. But you can see here, this is already in full effect. Now let's go ahead and get those package files installed. You might have forgotten about that, but I certainly didn't. So in order to do that here, you need to navigate over to the settings, go all the way down to debug settings, and then go to game. Go to the package installer. It'll load up a little bit and you should see your packages right here. Now there's going to be some packages that already come preloaded onto this Blu-ray disc. So if you just want to get a nice little, I suppose, homebrew setup going on here, you can just hit install all, or you can pick these specific ones you're wanting to. This one was a bit redundant just to get that download here. However, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and do install all. So it's going to pull some of them from the disk itself and the rest of them it's going to pull from the USB drive. Just wait a few moments for everything to install here. And there we go, we had a whole ton of notifications that popped up here, but as you can see, we have all of our downloads and everything set up. So if we come back here, right here, we have the Apollo Save tool, which allows you to manipulate and modify and even download saves and such pretty easily. Payload Guest lets you load up other payloads pretty easily. The PS4 Cheats Manager is pretty self-explanatory. We also have an Items Flow Games Manager as well. PS4 Explorer is a little bit of a file explorer on here. Of course, our game Silent Hill. We also have Wild Guns Reloaded instead of Remastered, my bad, and then the store right here. So you already have a nice selection of applications to use here. However, real quick on those game installs, if you go back over to settings, let's say you're doing this in the future here, you go to your debug settings, game, and the package installer, and you notice these pop up every single time. That is just because you have your Blu-ray disc in the drive. So if you get annoyed by these showing up here, you just need to take the disc out and they won't show up within this menu. If it doesn't bug you that much, that's totally fine. We can go ahead and exit out of here and let's go ahead and jump into the Homebrew store. Now this does require internet access. So if you have not been hooked up to the internet yet, you're going to want to do that now and then go ahead and open up the store. When you open this up, it might tell you that an update is required. So go ahead, hit OK and let it download the update file and update. There we go. Now, if you enjoy the Homebrew store, it does have a couple options where you can donate to the developers there. We can hit OK. it's going to preload all of our icons here, and then once this is set up, congratulations, you do have access to the store, and you can go in here, explore. If there's any updates like it shows on the left side, it should load those in. So this is something that you can check out and have some fun with here. Now, usually I was doing this in my previous video, I was advising people to go in here and load up the PS4 Cheats Manager, but since this is already on the ISO, we didn't really need to do that. But if there's any others that interest you, for example, like the remote package installer, you can go ahead, load this up, and then hit download and install, and it'll do exactly that. Go ahead and give it a few moments to download, and then once it installs, we should be good. And there we go. So that's really how it works here. If there's any other downloads you're wanting, you can go ahead and go through them, check this all out. Additionally, if there's any updates you're wanting to apply, for example, well, it looks like Apollo Save Tool needs an update. So I'll go ahead and go in here, and I'll update Apollo Save Tool. Give that a few moments, let it download, install, and just do the same thing. And there we go. With all that installed, congratulations, it shows that it is ready to use. So that is a bit of how you can use the store. Quick, simple, but easy enough to use. If you want to check out anything else, you can go over to the store apps and you can either search for games or you can even sort by, filter by, whatever you're wanting to on here. So if you want to search for something and you know what it is, you have the keyword right there and you can check it out. However, I've done pretty much everything I've wanted to in the store for now. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out of the store, and we can navigate over to something else a little more fun. This here is going to be the PS4 Cheats Manager, and even if you're not super interested in cheats and such, I would still recommend following along with this right here. Go ahead, open up the PS4 Cheats Manager. And here we go. Once it loads in, it should look a little something like this. And the first option I'd recommend going to is the update option. Go into here and now navigate to update cheats, patches, and plugins over the internet. And just go through each of these options. The first one is going to be cheats. So give it a few moments here. This is going to be the biggest one. And here we go. Almost 4,000 cheat files. Next thing is going to be the patches. Hit OK, and the last one is going to be plugins. This one should be super quick. There we go, all that is done. Now we can exit out of here, we can exit out of here yet again, and for this now, let's go ahead and close out of the PS4 Cheats Manager. Now that that's been closed, we do need to navigate back over to GoldHEN. Once we're in GoldHEN, go down to the plugin settings, and now you should be able to see that the Enable Game Patch plugin is now available and working. So you can go ahead and enable that. And now that our patches have been enabled, we can have a little bit of fun with our games here. So now with all that set up, you might be wondering what you can do with this. And let me just show you so you can at least hit the ground running a little bit here. With all that downloaded and set up, let's go ahead and try and mess around with cheats. In order to do that, you're going to need to load up a game with compatible cheats on here. And it must be a compatible game, build, and version. I know Bloodborne, this is the Game of the Year version, for example. That is the version number right there showing up, and if you want to try a game with some cheats, we can go ahead, fire this up. Now once you launch this, you're going to be able to tell that I am running GoldHEN and the jailbreak successfully, because right there in the bottom left corner, you can see there is a frame per second counter which is running here. So I just want to get in game at least to show you this and how this can be set up. So we're just going to have to skip all this at the beginning. And for here, I'm just going to play offline, and I'm going to load up a save here I have right at the beginning. Now once this loads in here, I'll show you the cheat menu. You just need to take your controller, hold down the share button for a few seconds, and it'll bring up the GoldHEN cheat menu. If you have a compatible game, build, and version that corresponds with some of the cheats on here, check this out. You do have a few options for cheats that you can pick from different developers on here. So for example, if one of them has like a master code, you'll probably need to set that just to get the other cheats working. And then from there, you can go through and set up all the other cheats you want to. If you want infinite items, all this other stuff here, congratulations, you can do that. And then you can just exit out. Oh, and look at that, it already applied that, so that is great. But that is how you can use your cheats here real quick. You could see in the top right corner, I have everything set to 9999 just because, well, infinite everything, why not? Now that's pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie, but there's a little more that we can do to get some more juice out of our games as well too. And for that, we are going to have to close out of our game here and I do want to show you how you can utilize these patches. To do that, go ahead and fire up the PS4 Cheats Manager. Once you're in the PS4 Cheats Manager, you're going to need to navigate over to the Patches section, and from here, there's going to be a ton of games available, different builds of games, different versions, and different patches that you can apply. Now, if you don't want to run through everything here, you can see the games that are installed have a star next to them. You can tap the triangle button and it will only bring up the games which have been installed on your system. One of them here, we can jump right back into it, is going to be Bloodborne. So if I jump in here, there's a few options that we have available, and you can really pick whatever you're wanting to on here. So for this, I'm going to go with the 60 frame per second patch. I'm also going to disable chromatic abrasion, disable motion blur, disable VSync. I'm also going to do the resolution patch to keep it at 720p, and we should be good at that point. So once you have those set and active, we can X out of here, we can just close out of PS4 Cheats Manager, and now I'm going to show you the difference with that. So go ahead and load up your game that you've applied the patches to. This time around, it's going to be a little bit different. So we have our FPS counter, and at the top left, we have 5 patches applied, 158 patch lines applied, which is good. You can see the FPS is, wow, it's going crazy this time around. That's funny. And here we go. Now you just saw how I ran this before, but I'm going to go to play offline. And if you look in the bottom right corner, it will say this 60 FPS patch was made with love by Lance McDonald, which means that we've been able to successfully patch our game. Just like before, I'm going to go into continue and let this load in. And check this out. Wow, okay, that is a nice difference. It's not going to be stable, mind you, because I'll also let you all know I'm doing this all on a standard PS4, so not a PS4 Pro. But if you're watching this video in 60 frames per second, or even if not, if you just look in the bottom left of the screen here, you can see that we certainly have a frame per second counter, which is higher than 30. So that is great. That is how you can apply some cheats on here, some patches, and have some fun with this game, or any games that are compatible. It's some cool stuff on here. So now with all the fun stuff out of the way, let's talk about some of the not fun stuff. Let's say you've had a lot of fun with your PS4, or you just jailbroke it, you're all good to go, you turn off your system, you turn it back on, you want to play some Bloodborne, and all of a sudden, check this out, you're not able to play this. So you're getting this please wait, you're getting that, you can't launch the Homebrew store, you can't do any of this here. What is the deal? Well, like I said earlier in the video, this here is a tethered jailbreak, meaning that every time you completely power off the system, whether you turn off the system, whether you restart it, whether you unplug power, you lose power, whatever it is, whatever the situation might happen, if you lose power to your system, you lose your jailbreak because it is temporary. So in order to fix this, you do have to re-jailbreak your system. And since this is tethered, every single time you cold boot your system, you have to launch this again. Make sure you pop your disk in and go to the HEN loader and load it up. And just like before, just like you jailbroke it the first time here, you just need to select your exploit and load it up. There we go, it was successful. And now the nice thing is as well too, since you saw that closed out so quickly, that was because of the GoldHEN settings that we ended up applying. So you could see that it was able to close out automatically, and it was able to load up and synchronize everything, including the date and time. So that's pretty cool. From here, you can go back into the Homebrew store, any other applications, and you can see that these should be working just fine now. Well, let me give it a few moments. Okay, hit OK. All right, here we go. It's actually loading up here, and congratulations, you have your jailbreak back. Just keep that in mind. Like I said, it is a tethered jailbreak, so every single time you cold start the system, you are going to have to run through that yet again. A question a lot of people have is also about rest mode. A lot of people do utilize rest mode, and they might not want to run the jailbreak every single time. Well, that is why we had not only this setting here, I believe it was within settings, rest mode support has to be enabled, but if you don't want to jailbreak your system every single time, you do have that option available. Completely up to you. I personally like to have my systems on or off, but if you want to utilize rest mode, you can hold down the PlayStation button, go to power, and go to enter rest mode. And let's give it a few moments here. And here we go, it did successfully come out of rest mode. We do have FTP running yet again. Time and date was updated, and from here, let me go ahead and, I'll go ahead and load up the Apollo save tool. There we go, was able to load this in. install the application data, and it looks to be good at this point here. Rest mode is a little bit of a contingency because for a while, and I think it still might be around, but dependent on the exploits, the firmware, the system models as well too, some systems might respond better to rest mode than others. So if rest mode works for you, awesome. If not, thankfully, this exploit is quick enough where you can just go in and load up the disk and be back up and running within a few seconds. Now, one big thing people have wanted to know is about firmware updates, and there were a few things that I had done here. One of them was going into settings, going into, let's see, system, and then disabling the automatic downloads here. That is going to be really important. This is what I've been doing for years, and I've had this system. I originally got it on firmware 1.76, and like I said in a previous video, the amount of times I've accidentally updated this system has been 0. So as long as you are strict about it, as long as you follow that, you should be good. However, some people might want some extra protection. But one nice thing is that when you are running GoldHEN itself, GoldHEN actually has update blocking capabilities already built into it. So as soon as you're running GoldHEN, you should be good, your updates should be blocked, and you're not going to accidentally update your system while GoldHEN is running. But some people might be wanting that extra layer of protection, which now we can do pretty easily. We can actually do this by just jumping right back into the disk itself. And from here, I'm going to let you all explore the rest of the options here if you so choose to, but one of the things you can do is go to the Disable Updates option. Let's navigate there. Check it out, it says disabled updates, and now at this point, congratulations, you are now able to have updates disabled on the system. So now the nice thing is, even if I take a USB drive and I try to update the system manually, or I try to connect it online and try to update the system, the update functionality is successfully broken on there, meaning that we will not be able to install any firmware updates on the system. If you ever want to undo this, I can show you how to do it real quick. Just jump right back into the disk itself. If you ever want to enable updates in the future, you can go down to the Homebrew payload launcher, and from here there's a ton of payloads that you can check out. Now I am going to say, do not go in and start running payloads willy-nilly. Please do not do that. You really need to know what these payloads do in order to not only make the most use out of them, but also to not damage your system. However, for this, I do know what I'm doing here. If I ever want to enable updates, I can come over to PS4 Enable Updates, tap the X button, and there we go, enabled updates. But I don't really want to do that, so I'm actually just going to go back, disable updates yet again, and there we go, updates have been disabled to the system. So with that, as long as you've been able to disable them from the payload level, even if your system is not running GoldHEN, your system will not be able to update unless you enable updates with this payload. And for a final question, a lot of people have been wondering, okay, I don't want the disk in the drive all the time. Is there any danger of having it there? Can I remove the disk? And in short, no. I mean, there's going to be, if you want to get really technical, there's going to be maybe like a little bit of wear and tear because you're going to be using your laser every single time to recognize the disk and it will be spinning in there, but it's going to be pretty negligible, especially over time. Like, you'd have to do this. What I'm saying is playing games from disk already and installing them is going to be much more damaging than just having this BDJB disk in there. But no, if you want to, you can remove this disk after you use it. That's totally fine. I do know most people just keep the disk in the drive the whole time. However, the nice thing is with this ISO in particular, once you remove that disk, you can go to your settings, you can go down to debug settings, game, package installer, and I just have my USB drive plugged in, so that way I don't have all those other packages already on the disk. They're not showing up here. Just keep in mind though, just like I said before, it's not like you're one and done and you're good to go at this point. No, if I go right here and power off the system or restart it, I am going to lose the jailbreak. At that point, you do need to put the disk back in. So if you always want to have your PS4 jailbreakable, it's kind of better to just have the disk in the drive, which I'm actually going to do that right now. With all that being said, however, that is how you can jailbreak your PS4 running up to firmware 12.52. This is a really awesome jailbreak. Thankfully, so far it's been pretty stable and it seems to work pretty dang well. It looks like there are going to be some higher firmware jailbreaks that will be coming out in the near future, in the horizon. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know ETAs. I am not the person to ask about that, but once they are available, I'll hopefully be able to cover them here on the channel. So if you have a higher firmware PS4 and you've been watching this video longingly, what I can tell you is take your PS4, disconnect it from the internet, put it somewhere safe, and hopefully, maybe in the next few months or so, you might be able to run a higher firmware jailbreak on your system. Either way, that is about it for this video here. This is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, a like would absolutely be appreciated, and if you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too.